The jazz playing from the Bluetooth speaker was the same one Dad had used since I was in middle school. Miles Davis, soft and nostalgic. The oak table gleamed, and Mom had made her signature roasted squash again. For a moment, it almost felt like nothing had changed. But then, just as Dad passed me the mashed potatoes, he smiled and asked, "Is the $2,000 enough each month?" The fork dropped from my hand. Silence fell. Even the jazz seemed to vanish. I blinked. "What money?" His smile faltered. "The transfer I've been sending, every month. You haven't been getting it?" I turned slowly toward Mom. She dabbed at the corners of her mouth with a cloth napkin, not meeting anyone's eyes. "I thought it would be better used elsewhere," she said quietly. "Better used?" Dad repeated, his voice rising. "You told me you'd handle the transfers." "I did," she said flatly. "To who?" His voice cracked, because it clearly wasn't to Maggie. Mom's hand trembled slightly as she reached for her water glass. "Sophia's program is more expensive. She needs it more. You know how competitive fashion is. And Maggie's supposed to survive on scraps while our other daughter walks down Rodeo Drive?" Dad snapped. "I asked once," I said quietly. "You told me there was nothing left after tuition." "I thought you were okay," he said. His voice sounded like it was folding in on itself. "I thought you had enough. I've been working nights, tutoring, bar shifts, skipping meals, but sure, okay." Mom stood abruptly, chair legs scraping. "Don't do this here. It's Thanksgiving." "I need air," I muttered, pushing back from the table. Outside, the air stung. The porch hadn't changed. The same chipped paint on the railing. The same welcome mat that no longer said welcome. I leaned against the wall and tried to breathe. The weeks after Thanksgiving passed in a blur of lectures, tutoring, and bartending. My shoes had started separating at the soles. I stapled them shut on a Friday night shift. My anatomy textbook had water damage from an overturned mug. I hadn't bought fresh vegetables in 3 weeks. Still, I kept going. Then came the night my body finally gave in. I remember holding a tray of drinks, music pulsing in the background, someone shouting for a round of shots, and then nothing, just heat and collapse. I woke up in a hospital bed, white lights, beeping machines, an IV in my arm. The nurse asked if I had anyone to call. I shook my head. Later, my manager said he'd called both my parents after the ambulance came. No answer. "Figured they'd show up," he muttered. "Guess not." 2 days later, Caleb knocked on my door with a bag of groceries and baked ziti. I hadn't given him my address. He found me anyway. "You look like you're disappearing," he said, setting the food on my counter. "I'm fine." He didn't argue. He just handed me a plate and sat on the other end of the couch. I took a bite. Warmth exploded across my tongue. I had to stop myself from crying over a forkful of noodles. That night, I slept 12 hours straight. The next morning, I checked my phone. 2 unread messages from Mom. The first, "Glad you're doing okay. Can you send Sophia the name of that skincare brand you liked?" The second, "Don't forget to eat." I deleted both. Later that week, I saw Sophia post a video from a brunch spot in West Hollywood. Filtered sunlight, flawless makeup, captioned, "Thanks, Mom." I opened my banking app. Nothing. No transfers. Not a cent since August. Her next post? Rooftop lounge, cream silk dress, champagne. Caption, "Mom always knows what I need. Gifted." I threw my phone onto the bed. It bounced and landed face up, cracked screen catching the afternoon light. I stared at the ceiling for a long time. Then I called her. Sophia picked up on the second ring. "Maggie, wow, you never call. Everything okay?" "Yeah," I lied. "Just checking in." "You miss me," she teased. "Sure." My voice sounded distant. She rambled about a shoot in Pasadena, some almond milk shortage at her favorite cafe. I listened quietly, counting the unopened bills on my desk. Eventually, I asked, "How do you manage it all? Financially? LA isn't cheap." "Oh," she said breezily. "Mom wires me $3,500 each month, sometimes more if I have events. She gets it. It's about investing in the dream." "That's great." I tasted iron in the back of my throat. Anyway, how are classes? She asked, oblivious. I didn't even remember what I said next. My ears were ringing. When the call ended, I sat there, phone still in my hand, heart pounding like I'd just run 10 blocks in the snow. I opened my laptop and searched for flights. The cheapest one had 2 layovers and a 6-hour delay. I booked it anyway. I didn't know exactly what I was going to say when I got home, but I knew I wouldn't be quiet this time. I was done waiting to be seen. Because the truth is, I wasn't forgotten. I was ignored on purpose. If you've ever been passed over after giving everything you had, type 1. The email came at 6:42 a.m., subject line, Notice of Withdrawal, Research Grant Termination. I blinked at the screen, barely awake. The grant, my only academic lifeline, was gone. Just like that, no warning, no explanation. I clicked into the attachment. One line stood out in bold red font. Due to misrepresented financial need, funding has been reallocated. My stomach dropped. I had submitted everything honestly, unless... I jumped to my FAFSA profile and found the source. The parental income field had been updated 3 weeks prior, reflecting a much higher household income. The contact email? My mother's. She had overwritten it. Back home in Chicago, I sat in the same kitchen where I'd once memorized multiplication tables and practiced cello. The sunlight cut across the table in clean slants. The silence was unbearable. I pushed my barely touched soup aside. I haven't received anything, not a single dollar. Dad looked up from his plate, startled. You mean the $2,000? I shook my head slowly. He turned to Mom. Leona? She kept her eyes on her lentils. I've been sending it to Sophia. There it was, said like a fact, not a betrayal. Dad's fork clattered against the plate. You told me you were handling it, that it was being split evenly. She needs it more, Mom said, unfazed. She has a lookbook coming out. Her brand is gaining traction. LA's expensive, networking dinners, event styling, transportation. And I don't need to eat, I snapped. Mom's eyes flicked up, like she was surprised I spoke. I'm not saying that, just, you've always been resilient. You make do. Dad pushed back his chair and stood up slowly. You let me believe she was okay. You let me sleep at night thinking she had everything she needed. She always does, Mom said louder, almost defensively. The table fell into silence again, the kind that burns. That night, Dad knocked on my bedroom door. I didn't answer. He opened it anyway, quietly. I couldn't sleep, he said, rubbing his temple. I keep going over the numbers, over what she said. I trusted her. I thought you were comfortable. I sat up in bed. Do you remember the summer I wanted to do that medical immersion program at Stanford? He nodded slowly. She told me we couldn't afford it, so I worked double shifts instead. Sophia went to Milan that same month. His jaw tightened. She told me you didn't mind, that you'd changed your mind. I cried for a week. I paused, but I didn't tell anyone, because I thought maybe I was overreacting. Maybe I was too much. He sank into the desk chair. This isn't about strength, Maggie. It's about fairness, and I missed it. We sat in silence. Then he added, almost to himself, she always said you didn't need as much, that you were low maintenance, independent. I was independent, I said, but I shouldn't have had to be. The next morning, I found Dad in his study, scrolling through financial statements with a pen in one hand and his glasses slipping low on his nose. I need you to know something, he said without looking up. I didn't just believe her, I gave her access. To what? The trust fund, the one your grandfather set up. It was supposed to be split evenly between you and Sophia when you turned 25. I thought it was locked until then. He paused. Turns out, she's been diverting funds to a separate account, in Sophia's name only. I stood there frozen. How much? He looked me in the eye. 250,000. It didn't feel like shock. It felt like confirmation, like something I had always known but never had the proof to say aloud. What happens now? I've called the attorney. We're starting the process to reverse the transactions. It won't be quick. He hesitated. But it's happening. I nodded. That was all I could do. Later that night, I passed the kitchen just as Mom was sliding an envelope of cash into her handbag. She didn't see me watching from the hallway. Dad did. He stood in the doorway, arms crossed. I can't do this anymore, he said. Not loud, but final. Mom looked up, frozen. I was just trying to protect her. And who was protecting Maggie? She's fine, she insisted. She's always been fine. You keep saying that like it makes this okay. I wanted the best for Sophia. And what did Maggie get? He asked. There was no answer, just that look on her face, the one that said she was done defending herself because deep down she already knew it wasn't defensible. The next day, Dad filed for legal separation. The house changed instantly, not physically, but the atmosphere, lighter in the rooms somehow, like stale air had been cracked open. Mom still made breakfast, folded laundry, rearranged throw pillows with mechanical precision, but she didn't talk to me, not really. I stayed 2 more nights. When I packed my bag, she stood in the doorway, arms crossed, mouth tight, like she wanted to say something but didn't. I didn't help her. Back in Philadelphia, I opened my school inbox. Subject: Scholarship Eligibility, Reconsideration. Body: Due to recent corrected financial disclosures, your previous disqualification has been reviewed and reversed. That's when I knew. Mom hadn't just prioritized Sophia. She'd sabotaged me. If you've ever been overlooked in the name of someone else's potential, type 2. The notification buzzed mid-shift. Hey, just confirming your replacement's starting Monday. Thanks for all your help. We're restructuring the team. I stared at the message from my bar manager. I hadn't quit. I hadn't even known I was being replaced. No warning, no meeting, just removed. I walked to the back, peeled off my apron, and sat on an overturned crate near the stockroom. A cold rush swept through me. Not from the open door, but from the realization, even the job I'd held on to through everything was slipping. Maybe they assumed I'd moved on. Maybe I had disappeared too well. Back in Philadelphia, I dropped 2 shifts. Not out of anger, just necessity. My hands were shaking constantly, my nails chipped to the quick. The only thing holding me together was school, and even that felt like it was borrowed time. But something shifted. I ate breakfast every morning, real breakfast. I took slow walks without counting the minutes. My professors noticed. Caleb noticed. I noticed. My grades climbed fast. Not because I got smarter, but because I finally had room to breathe. I bought new sneakers, cheap but clean. No staples, no peeling soles. They felt like armor. One night, Sophia texted me. A photo of a coat she'd styled. Secondhand, reworked. Not designer, she wrote, but feels more like me. I stared at it for a while before replying. I'm glad. And I meant it. The next evening, she called. No warning, just her name lighting up my screen. Maggie? Her voice was softer than usual. I think I finally see it now. See what? What it cost you, all of it. I didn't say anything. My throat tightened. I didn't want to believe it, she continued, because if I did, I'd have to admit that Mom made things easier for me, and that meant she made things harder for you. I leaned back against the headboard. I don't need you to feel guilty. Just don't pretend it was ever fair. I won't, she said, and she didn't fill the silence. She just let it sit, honest and bare. Then finally, are you going home for the holidays? I don't know. Dad is. I am too, she said. Then softer. Maybe we could go together. I didn't say yes, but I didn't say no either. 1 year after the Thanksgiving that broke everything, we flew back to Chicago. Just 2 carry-ons and an early morning knock on the door. Mom opened it wearing a plain sweater I didn't recognize. Her hair grayer, her expression unreadable. The kind of face that had practiced politeness too long to wear anything else. We didn't hug, but we walked in. The table was set. No centerpiece, no jazz. Just simple roasted vegetables, overcooked turkey, and a store-bought pie. No one brought up the past, but no one tried to pretend it hadn't happened either. That, I realized, was its own kind of healing. Sophia complimented the stuffing. Dad asked how my classes were. Mom mentioned how retail hours were a bit of an adjustment. It wasn't warm, but it was honest, and that mattered more. That night, I unpacked in my childhood bedroom. The posters were gone. The walls felt smaller. From my bag, I pulled out a plain white envelope. Inside, my tuition receipt, paid in full. I slid it into the drawer beside an old note Dad had given me after he took over the finances. This is yours, not because you earned it, but because I finally saw you. I read it again, then closed the drawer slowly. Here's what I know now. Silence doesn't make you strong. Being invisible doesn't mean you're invincible. And love? Love isn't proven by how little you ask for. It's proven by how someone shows up even when you never asked. Sophia stayed a few days longer. She made small talk, helped in the kitchen. Once I caught her folding my old hoodie from the laundry basket. She didn't say anything about it, but she folded it carefully, like it mattered. When she left, she squeezed my hand before walking out the door. I didn't cry. I didn't collapse. I just stood there and breathed. Dad calls every week now, sometimes about school. Sometimes just to tell me about a book he's reading or a meal he tried to cook. He listens like time is no longer something he needs to ration. Mom still works at Home Goods. She says it's temporary, but we both know not to ask more. Our calls are brief, civil. Neither of us pretends we're who we used to be, and maybe that's okay. One night, as I was leaving the library, Sophia called again. Her voice had that tentative edge I recognized. Thinking about going home again, she said. To see Mom. I didn't reply immediately. Not for her, she added. Just to do it right this time, you know? Like a reset. I stood under the awning as the rain began to fall. Cold drops against warm skin. I didn't give her an answer, but I didn't hang up either. Some stories don't end with apologies. Some don't even end with forgiveness. They begin with one thing: being seen. If you've ever had to prove your pain just to be noticed, type 3.